kick it off, you just mentioned you were working on some new content. Sounds like some videos or walkthroughs. What's new in your world that you're exploring right now, other than Linux, and talk more about that too.
Yeah, so right now I am just exporting a video on Cold Card NFC. So they just what's it, Nunchuck Wallet just this past week or so dropped the ability to do NFC transactions with Cold Cards. So I got to play around with it and yeah, so got to that this week and put it together. And then I'm just waiting on I'm going to do a refresh video on my node, and then I've got a start 9 headed my way. I think I'm going to try Citadel, like do a build of that, and then I'm probably going to be picking up a nodal when I'm in LA for Pacific Bitcoin. So lots of node stuff on the horizon.
Right on. What was that, Nate?
Dude, are you getting the new embassy or the old embassy? Because I've had the new one pre-ordered for a while. I'm super excited about it.
I think it's the new one, actually. I've been speaking with them, seeing if I can. Yeah, I'm basically I'm going to be putting together a video. I don't know, at some point in the next month and a half. But yeah, I think it's the new beefy one that they've got coming.
Sweet.
Have you played with it already, like the original one? Because I haven't.
Nah, dude, in Miami, I was like ready to buy one, and they're like, "No, we're gonna have a better one later this year." I'm like, "Ugh, okay, well, I guess I'll just wait." So I've just been waiting.
Yeah,
Uh,
such as the life with hardware. There's always a new, better, awesome, more awesome one on the way, right?
yeah, it was pretty funny. It's like I go there to like spend money, and they're like, "No, no, no, don't buy this one. Just wait for the next one." Like, oh, okay, I'll keep my money and I'll just wait.
What's been your preference for just managing a node and like having your own like Lightning wallet at home? Been what's been your favorite thus far out of everything you've played with?
So I still think, and again, maybe this will change because I'm about to test out a bunch of new stuff, but for user friendliness in terms of just like navigation and kind of the look of it, I know that there's trade-offs with this, but like Umbrel kind of I feel set the bar that where a lot of people that were maybe timid about starting a node decided to, right? They looked at the user interface and they're like, that looks like an app store that I would already deal with. That looks like I might be able to do it. So I think that they kind of set that bar and that we're now seeing the repercussions of that across all of these other node implementations. Um, I will say that I did the Raspberry Blitz and they just did a web interface. They just dropped like in the past couple of months here. And the web interface is on the right track. It looks nice, but it's buggy still. Like it's the first release, right? So obviously I'm expecting it to be buggy like that, but yeah, just it's not it's not reliable yet. I think it will get better, but I ran C Lightning on that one, and connecting it with Zeus Wallet was smooth and fast, which was awesome. And then the other one I got running is I've got a Ronin Dojo here, and that thing's pretty robust. Like it keeps ticking. I never have issues with it really, and yeah, it's pretty solid. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really need much maintenance, I find. And then also the user interface on that is it looks slick as hell with the black and the red.
Right on, right on. And in your world, what are you paying attention to just in the Lightning space? There's been so much news. I feel like we were talking last week how everything, what your views are right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Lightning Network capacity just keeps on pumping higher and higher, right? Which is good to see. More and more people getting their feet wet. It's also, I mean, we've also seen a lot of criticism as of late, which I don't think is a bad thing, right? It forces us to work on better UI. There's still, failed payments regularly, especially if a user jumps on and their first experience is, oh, this failed, I got to try this, maybe this wallet will work. Obviously there's still work to be done, but I don't view that as like as we've seen on Twitter, oh, Lightning is dead or it's failed. I view that as, this is relatively early and it's a layer atop Bitcoin, which Bitcoin, obviously works pretty flawlessly at this point. It just keeps on ticking. So, it's constantly moving infrastructure. So I'm excited to see the capacity of Lightning Network continue to grow. Again, comparatively to testing it out in like 2018, it's so much easier than it used to be. I think it's interesting to see things like Taro, which is now, if I'm not mistaken, is in alpha. I'm curious to see where that goes and kind of what people use that to build. Obviously there's the stablecoin thing, and stablecoins don't appeal to me, but a large portion of the populace, when it comes to censorship resistant transactability, I think that can be very useful for some people that want to deal in dollars. The trade-off obviously there is additional counterparty risk, right? Like with traditional banking, you have the counterparty risk of it's sitting in a bank, and you've got to trust whoever you're dealing with, whether it should be just the bank or PayPal and some other payment processor that can censor you. Well, if you don't want the censorship, then the trade-off is, well, there's another added counterparty risk on top of it, which is whoever's holding the dollars that the stablecoin represents. So again, not super useful for me, but I can see how it'd be useful for some. Again, I'm wondering what else is going to be built. I think that it's an opportunity where you'll get plenty of the bad shitcoiny ideas that get built on top of Bitcoin too, but those will be filtered out as people also realize if it's a bad idea in general, then it'll likely also be a bad idea on Bitcoin, and the good stuff will filter to the top, I suppose. So we'll see. I don't know. What have you guys been thinking about Taro and it finally kind of hitting alpha?
Yeah, Nate.
I mean, you know me, Ben. So as soon as they announced it, I downloaded it and made a crap coin on on testnet. I mean, you can't really do much with it now, but as far as like the implications, I think it remains to be seen, because these tokens that people generate, you could say it's a stable coin, but just saying it doesn't make it a stable coin or whatever. So like I'm curious to see how these institutions or businesses or whatever go about actually proving that these things are backed by what they say that they're backed. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but
where can I buy that sweet shitcoin that you made? It must have a huge market cap by now, right?
Dude, I don't know. I think I minted like 100 million test. I think I called it test shitcoin. So
I need it.
I didn't
I
do
need it.
I'll send you some if you install.
Yeah, a lot of the guys on the team and gals on the team, they've been discussing what it means for Lightning, and at the end of the day, everyone's like, "Please, no shit coins," and all the node runners are like, "Hey, if I'm gonna collect routing fees, y'all do whatever you want, you bunch of degenerates." So I think it's a win-win for node runners.
That's kind of like in the boat I'm in. I'm like, whatever, man. Do what you want to do. I'll you pay me and I'll give you liquidity for your shitcoin. That's whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, like I'm not there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm not keen on, but I also understand that um if it's open source, if anybody can use it, then I don't get to dictate how people use it. So I guess that's just part of the game, and people will make their own mistakes. I'm curious, um is it possible for node runners to decide whether or not they route those types of transactions?
To my knowledge, no.
Fair enough. Now, I guess you probably wouldn't even know if you were, right?
Yeah, you would just see you forwarded 500 sats. You know, it would look exactly like it looks today.
Yeah, because I think it's only the sending and receiving node have to have the ability to deal with whatever the Taro token is, not any of the intermediary nodes.
Yep, that's my understanding. If there's anyone in the audience that like knows more about it, like raise your hand. That's totally cool. But like the current alpha testnet is on-chain Taro, which I thought that this was like a Lightning thing for the longest time until Ryan Gendry like told me more about it when we hung out a few months ago. So you could do this. I mean, it's on-chain, and but it just translates to Lightning also. So I'm curious to see how that will be used when that goes mainnet on both to see if there will be more Lightning than on-chain or vice versa. And Ryan was actually on, I think, yeah, he was on Bitcoin Magazine yesterday talking about this and how uh, it's different from RGB and uh, I don't know. There's just like I feel like people have been trying to quote unquote color Bitcoin for a long time. So I think it's just another sort of way to do that, but maybe it'll be the way that works, I guess, and gets people off of Tron or wherever they are doing stablecoin stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess we'll see where it goes. When I first kind of was learning about it, I watched one of Roast Beef's presentations on it, which like is if you're new to a topic, um, you need to set that to like 0.5 speed because sweet Lord, the amount of information that man can cram into like 3 seconds of talking is unbelievable. I think somebody, it was actually Jameson Law posted something. He was using like an AI to make transcripts, and so he wanted to throw something difficult at it. So he threw like a roast beef lecture from like 2018 or 2019 with a lot of technical jargon in it, and it clocked. He clocks at like 250 to 300 words per minute, whereas the average person is like 100 to 150. So yeah, it was like drinking from a fire hose listening to that talk.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember the first time hearing him chat. I was like, "Is this real?" Like, I double checked that my podcast wasn't on double speed, and then I realized I'm not the only one who thinks and feels that way. Pretty cool though, such a fast protocol, and then it's him. But one thing on Taro too, there is a space tomorrow. If anyone hasn't seen, looks like Lightning Labs is going to be chatting and discussing the impact of Taro and some of the possibilities. So hopefully there'll be a little bit more info, clarity, and some questions can be answered then as well. Nate, what's been the response to what you wrote this last week? Just in terms of like nodes, like starting as like spending to become a routing node. I think that's a pretty interesting topic, and that's something I'd love to even get Ben's insights on too. I think that's something people really don't think through or consider often.
Yeah, yeah. So I recently wrote like a really short blog for Voltage about, a lot of folks that I talk to that are curious about running a Lightning node. They've been using a Lightning wallet or something for a while and they want to take the next step. And then they start looking at guides and stuff and they see all this terminology and stuff that just kind of blows their brains apart and then it just put it off or make some excuse or something, which I totally understand. So I wrote a little thing about how, you can have a routing node without doing circular rebalances, without doing, maintaining it and maximizing routing fees and stuff. And you could do that even so far as to be able to earn by using Magma and stuff. And the way you do that is you essentially spend from your channels to get your inbound liquidity. So it's like a low time preference way to bootstrap that inbound liquidity over time. And then once that reaches a state where it has enough value that folks are willing to pay for a channel from, then you can start doing that. So I think it's a good way to just kind of get used to running a node. And I'm sure Ben knows that sometimes easing your way in is probably the best way rather than drinking from a fire hose from some of us that have been doing it for a while. So feedback has been good, I think. I haven't received any negative feedback, so I guess that's a good thing. But with services like voltage and all these nodes and stuff that are hardware that run nodes out of the box, it's really never been a better time, I think, to start a Lightning node and start playing around and go to Bitrefill, go to Pay with Moon. I mean, I pay my local sewer bill with Bitrefill with the Lightning Network. Like, it's awesome. So it's totally possible, and I bootstrap a lot of inbound liquidity on my node that way. Also, I do what I preach, right? And then I go ahead, and then when I need a channel, instead of me just opening up a channel, I open up a channel with someone who's willing to pay me for it, which is a good feeling too.
That's awesome. I love that the whole circular economy thing, and especially seeing it with Lightning and beginning to kind of evolve is exciting to me. Like I'd encourage anybody that hasn't played at all setting up a node to give it a go. And again, if you don't have the hardware, like if you're not willing to kind of jump on that, then yeah, like voltage, you can spin it up, you can, and like you guys, what is the billing frequency now? It's per hour, right? So like,
yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's so awesome, because somebody that just wants to be like, okay, I'm gonna play around, I just want to see how to like open a channel and like try sending payments and stuff. You can basically spin it up. You can spin up like a Thunder Hub, and then just like use that interface to kind of manage everything and just see the flows of everything. It's a good learning tool for those that are uninitiated and just they're like, I don't know if I want to try and find the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin, which at the moment would be a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
But like if you want to learn, it's super easy to just do that, spin it up, like start there, and then I found it super useful in and around like especially when I'm doing like event tickets. I just default to running stuff through voltage, which is great, like BTC Pay. But yeah, anyways, rambling on here.
I think it's awesome because there's so many reasons why somebody might want to try voltage, and I think that's one of the reasons, right? You don't want to spend a few $100 on a terabyte hard drive and hardware that used to be a lot cheaper if you're not 100% sure that you're going to get something out of it. So and the experience of voltage is very similar to an experience of a Raspberry Pi. You have your home little dashboard, and you go to your management dashboard, which is Thunder Hub, and you just do your thing.
Ben, we've paid you some invoices over Bitcoin and Lightning. I'm pretty confident over the last few months. Have you been operating or trying to run your like content creation business basically on a Bitcoin standard this last year?
Oh yeah, like I invoice, and so I set so the way that I've been invoicing is I set my invoices in like denominated in US dollars, which was a good call given that the whole milkshake thing is playing out pretty well. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't set my invoice prices in the Canadian moose shekel, as it's been devalued much. But nonetheless, I invoice denominated in dollars, but I get paid in Bitcoin. So yeah, like it comes in at the beginning of the month. I know what my bills are, so I just pay those up front. And again, Nate, you were talking about Bitrefill. That helps a ton. You know, I can get gift cards for groceries, stuff like that. I use Bull Bitcoin to pay bills, or like sometimes I will use like credit cards, but then I pay the credit cards off with Bull Bitcoin. So there's just like I it's easy to get by nowadays just paying in Bitcoin or just earning Bitcoin. Like I'm never like, oh God, how am I going to pay for this? There's so many options that it's not a concern anymore. I previously, I think it was 2014, there was a company, it doesn't exist anymore, but they ran a contest and they were like, hey, make a video about why you love Bitcoin. And then the winner, we're gonna give you enough Bitcoin to pay 1 month of your expenses, and you just make videos on how you made it work. You can use our website, or you can use any method in order to pay Bitcoin for your bills and all of that stuff. So 2014 was an entirely different ball game. There was a lot of like, oh God, what am I going to do? And there was a couple things that I couldn't manage to pay. But now, like, it's not even a question. In fact, I'm buying sorry for the background noise, but just on the whole circular economy thing, I was looking at the beef initiative, and they didn't have anybody in Canada yet. So I tweeted out, hey, are there any Canadian cattle ranchers that might be willing to sell for Bitcoin? And 3 minutes later, somebody tweeted me, hey, I'm cattle rancher outside of Calgary, happy to sell. And so I'm buying a quarter cow with my friend for Bitcoin, which is amazing. So yeah, it's just everything has come so far, and yeah, I'm doing it all on a Bitcoin standard.
That's awesome. I'm actually writing an article right now for us on how to start a Bitcoin business and trying to prove the case of the Bitcoin circular economy, the tools that are out there, and just everything people need that just don't live and breathe it the way we do. Hopefully, to be an icebreaker. So, I'm really excited to put that out. And this kind of leads to like a deeper question: is now that it's becoming a little more commonplace for us to just fire off a question into the Twitter sphere, and we tend to get a response, which is great to hear, like more affirmations of that. There's also a lot of tooling coming out that allow, better monetization over the web. And you being such an early proponent for Bitcoin and Lightning, how has this year been compared to just years prior? And I mean, are you able to keep up with these tools that are become available for content creators and business owners, or how's that shift been this last year?
I cannot keep up whatsoever. Like, if you were to look, I keep sticky notes on my desktop, and my list of things that I would like to cover is increasing faster than I can cover them. There's so many just, oh, you got to cover, this new tool, this new way of earning additional sats every time you spend, this new invoicing tool. There's so many things that I've come across that are the great things that are being pumped out, and I look forward to everybody being profoundly surprised at how much has happened when they begin paying attention again in a couple of years.
I think the vision that a lot of us have that are waist deep in Lightning, that this is what we all wanted the internet to be when it comes to sharing value. The internet was built to share information. And I've said it before, but I feel like this idea of putting in your name and your credit card and your address, this is that's a transition period, right? To the real way we're going to use the internet to transfer value. Like this ad model and stuff is just a transitionary time, and we're building that out, like you said, with like Albi and all these things that are open source. You could put it in your website, no problem, connected to your node, peer to peer over the internet, global. Gosh, it's what the internet was made for, I think, and we're just building that future that we want to see.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see all this stuff. That, on the same note of things that have kind of caught my attention that I didn't really realize were even could be related to Lightning, but you mentioned running nodes and everything, and you know, I think I realize that obviously not every person will run a node down the line, but something that can kind of address that and at least reduce kind of the honeypots out there is this Fediments idea, and kind of having these I guess more localized groups and communities and friends and family kind of having Fediments that have Bitcoin within them, and all the transactions moving between anybody in a Fediment are again they're basically anonymous. Like you can't tell what and how much and who is sending what. But I was kind of diving in, or at least reading a little bit, and I didn't realize that you can connect different Fediments to each other via Lightning channels, which is wild to me. I mean, I guess it would make sense if you had multiple different Fediments all kind of linked together, and then as you transact out one channel, then it would automatically rebalance through the other side. So yeah, I find it super interesting. I think it's really cool. I'm kind of excited to dive into that as it kind of grows and gets more fleshed out. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on? Have you looked at Fediments much?
I'm sort of keeping an eye on it. I remember a few months ago when Justin Moon was like getting so hardcore about it, and he talked to me about it for like 5 hours over beers in Austin. And I don't remember much about that conversation. But besides the point, I'm actually really interested in how fast that development has been growing. Like there's already apps and user interfaces being worked on. I forget exactly what I saw, but there was like someone, they're building apps and stuff for it, which is really really interesting. You know, if you have the option between using a Fedman style setup where you're not trusting a single party, yet you still don't feel like you can take sole responsibility over your money, it's still a better option, I think, than leaving it on an exchange with a single point of failure. So I think it's interesting that stopgap there. But as far as like Lightning and stuff, I hadn't heard about that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I'd agree that it's kind of presented as a good go between of like I don't want to trust a single entity. I don't want to trust an exchange, but I feel not technically savvy enough to do it myself. It would what would I feel like the way it's going to end up playing out is it's going to be a whole bunch of quote unquote Uncle Jims that are like, all right, mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever, aunt, uncle, grandma, you're going to join this Fediment, and you know we'll have the tech savvy ones of us actually kind of manage it, but then that way kind of the family's funds are away from the exchange, and it's not you know, you're not going to get rugged by like, you know, the next Mount Gox or Quadriga or whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely. I agree with that. I think it's going to be like a local community thing. But on the other side too is institutions that will eventually do the MicroStrategy thing where they have it as a reserve asset might be interested in something like that too. I think that trust in exchanges, I mean, I don't know, like everyone's got different opinions, but I personally think exchanges are a melting ice cube. Exchanges are destined to dry up eventually, and these custodians, like, yeah, if there's a way around them, we should do that.
Yeah, it's shit will really hit the fan when instead of an exchange going belly up with a bunch of like retail investors involved, an exchange goes belly up holding a bunch of institutional funds because you can, at the end of the day, that type of a loss, it's not really possible to like they could bail out institutions with dollars, but those dollars at that level aren't able to buy back the same amount of Bitcoin. So I feel like that's kind of the Trojan horse in the legacy financial system is you're going to get institutions that don't take self-custody seriously or don't even think about it at all, and they're going to get massively screwed. I think, yeah, Fediments could become pretty attractive after that, or some institutions will just say, screw it, we're just going to do it ourselves, do like a multi-sig or something.
Yeah, that brings up a question because, we've been talking about and using multi-sig for years now. So I wonder what the trade-offs or comparison between that and, say, a multi-sig setup where people from, say, a company's organization hold keys, but also unpartial third parties, like your Unchained Capitals or something, own key, have keys also. I wonder what the trade-off between that and, say, a Fedimint setup would be.
Yeah, because I mean, it's I guess totally different, right? In the way that, and again, I'm not super well versed with Fedimints yet, so to me, institutions doing the Unchained Capital style multi-sig setup makes perfect sense, right? Because they don't care about they don't they're not trying to be super private. In fact, they have to like publicly disclose those holdings. But then there's also a ton of fault tolerance there, right? Like they can massively screw up. Like in a Unchained 2 of 3, for instance, you've basically got 4 things probably. You've got 2 keys and a backup to each key. You could lose 75% of all of that and still be able to go to Unchained and be like, all right, we need another signature because we're the worst institution.
We're terrible.
We're so irresponsible that we cannot maintain 4 things. But yeah, like it's just that to me, from the perspective of an institution that wants to protect their money, like it just makes no sense to me once people begin to understand what a setup like that is, why they would ever continue down the path of just putting it off on another institution to just hold everything for them. Like it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I think this closes the loop nicely on Fedimint's probably better for a small community sort of bank, for lack of a better word, where there's multiple people instead of instead of an institution that are just a part of it. It's like a weird credit union or something.
Yeah, I think the because in general, I feel like the most transparency should be with the the larger you are, then the more you affect others, the more responsibility you have for others, the more transparent it should be. So like any government, you should be able to effectively look at and audit all of their funds at all times, always. And same goes for an institution where you have individuals that have invested in that company. It should be pretty transparent, like, if they're holding Bitcoin, oh, okay, well, there it is. I can see it. That's an instance where you want that transparency. Whereas if it's a small community and individuals hold different amounts of Bitcoin, fediments make a lot more sense because those individuals can transact and not have any sort of indication who owns what or how much was sent. It provides that amount of privacy that individual people should be able to enjoy.
Well, Ben, as we get close to the end here, a couple of questions, and you can let some folks jump up if they want to ask questions or say hey or anything. But you being like one of the bigger content creators, there's videos you have that go back multiple years that are still ranking highly and are super helpful and just educational for folks. Just in your perspective, like with the limited time people have that are not full-time creators like you, what would you say is the biggest, most impactful thing that an individual could do to advance Lightning adoption if they're listening right now and let's say they just had scarce time like we all do? What would you recommend to them to help advance Bitcoin and Lightning adoption?
I would probably say two things. One, I would say, using it in your own life, right? Like trying to, get involved, play around with, running a node or at least like experimenting, opening channels, playing around, understanding different types of wallets, gravitating towards and recommending people use the ones that work for you. Because we want to encourage we want to encourage good user experiences, and so I think in recommending good experiences that you've had, we get people to gravitate towards developers that are doing a good job. I would also say getting out there in your community and asking local businesses and individuals that you interact with if they would consider accepting it as payment. And you're going to get a lot of no's or a lot of no thank yous, and that's fine. But once in a while, it may pan out for you, and those things can continue to grow. If you're yourself offering services or products, you should list yourself on, I think it's called btcmap.org. They just they've been making the rounds. I think they're going to be on Stefan Livera pretty soon on his pod soon. But anyways, like list yourself as a business that accepts Bitcoin. Try and get that circular economy going. And you can list yourself as accepting Lightning. There's also the option to list yourself as accepting like no touch payment, like basically like the NFC cards for Lightning. You can also say that you're accepting that too. So yeah, create that local economy, that circular economy, offer your services in Bitcoin, and seek out others that are willing to do the same, and share with each other experiences, what works, what doesn't, and I think it's gonna build itself, but you can expedite it by doing things like that.
That's a great response. I love how you said use these wallets, use these technologies, and just instances, figure out which ones you like and recommend them so that whenever friends use them, you can support them and they're guaranteed to have a better experience. That's massive. And then part two, encouraging businesses. I know we're a culture that doesn't really actively pursue relationships. It seems like everything's done via Tinder and social media. It's almost like passively finding someone who wants to give you attention. But in the Bitcoin world and the circular economy, we have to be proactive and go out there and ask businesses to use it. So I think that's sound advice from you, man. That's good stuff. So I guess wrapping up, if there's anyone who wants to raise their hand, I mean, go right ahead. We got Ben for another 10 minutes or so. But yeah, Nate, while we wait for any others, is there any final thoughts or anything you want to chat with Ben as we get near the end here?
I mean, Ben knows we can chat anytime he wants. So I'll just add on to that. You know, if you're at a farmer's market and you're small chatting with whoever you're buying I don't know, a cucumber from or something, you know, you can, just because someone says like they're not interested or something, that's still a win, right? In the back of their head, Bitcoin is now living in their brain. And don't, you know, you did good. You just bringing it up and talking is the most important part. Don't be married to the idea of them responding saying, "Yes, set me up right now." That's not reasonable, really. But the fact that you're bringing it up, it reminds people that Bitcoin exists and people use Bitcoin, which is the most important part.
Yeah, totally agree there. I had a rejection earlier today. I was reaching out to a local poultry farmer. I was trying to get like eggs and chicken breasts and stuff like that, and they politely said that they weren't interested. But hey, that's a touch point, right? Later on, that individual will probably see Bitcoin somewhere else and go, "Huh, remember that one person asked if I could pay they could pay in Bitcoin a while back." And you know, that's how a lot of people will experience it. They'll see, oh geez, somebody offered to pay me in this like a couple of years ago, and now I see it's all over the news again. Maybe I should actually take a look at this thing. And that's, you know, it's great. It's how everybody, myself included, kind of encountered Bitcoin. You see it in some way, shape, or form, and then you see it again much later, and you have a few touch points, and then you get curious and you get involved.
Be like Ben, be like Nate, guys. Tell everyone about Bitcoin. Ask them to use it, and number go up. Number of
Hey,
users go up.
Bobby knows, man. Bobby and I, we when we're at conferences, we're out orange pilling all the time, man, just for fun. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always fun.
We gave every Uber driver an air freshener when we were in Austin for BitBlock's room. We made air fresheners and we just gave them to every Uber driver and told them about Bitcoin, and they loved it. And now they're going to remember us forever.
Dude,
Well,
when I was in Nashville last month, we took an Uber downtown, and the one of the Bitcoiners with us, Eastside Tony, some of you might know him, started talking to this to our driver who was from Venezuela, and he was already sort of a Bitcoin, like he understood it like right away. He was already using it and stuff. So we all tipped him in Lightning at the end, which was really cool to see.
that's super awesome. I love that.
Well, Ben, we appreciate your time joining us, man. We'll give you these final 13 or so minutes back. But homework for everyone this week. Oh, we got one who raised their hand. We'll let Kang maybe share something, ask a question real quick, and then we'll issue the homework for the week. Got something funny for everyone. All right. I think we got you here, Kang. What's up, sir? Looks like he's connecting.
Hello, thank you, everyone.
Hey, hey.
I'm 25, working in small village, and open some coffee shop at my village. I think first I get confused how to resolve the internet service provided, uh, how to tunneling it, or what what OS should I use when I running node in the Lightning Network. That my first case. The second case, I want to implement the Bitcoin payment in my village by first educate myself, my family, my brothers, and the close circle in my family. And that's my question. Please answer if anybody can solve that. Thank you.
Yeah. So you were saying about you were talking about internet connectivity in and around running a node, and your internet service provider. When you're referring to that, what's your main problem you're trying to solve there? Like, have you looked into running a node before? Is it a worry about bandwidth, like how much you're going to be using, or what's your main concern there first?
My main concern is the bandwidth. Actually, the bandwidth.
Okay, so the main thing with running a full Bitcoin node is going to be what's known as the initial block download, which is basically all of the transactions that have ever existed. That can take quite some time if you got a slow connection. I think I'm trying to think how big the blockchain is right now. It's like, is it, Nate, do you know, is it like 600 gigs or something?
Yeah, we're right on the edge of 600, really close.
Okay.
Over yet.
Okay, so the initial block download is kind of the most difficult part because it can take a while to download all of that data. Once that's done, then really you're going to be dealing with a few megabytes every 10 minutes, which isn't bad. And then, I mean, you're kind of relaying to other nodes and everything, but it's not, you don't need a super fast connection for that. Alternatively, you can run, if you're running a node, you can run with something that is called Neutrino, which doesn't require you to run a full copy of the Bitcoin network, of a full copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. Easiest way to do that, actually, it probably would be doing it via voltage, because you can just spin it up on the fly. You don't have to, like, I mean, they can host a full copy of the Bitcoin blockchain for you as well, but that's an easy option for getting in that practice, running a node, setting up channels. In terms of accepting payment at your business, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. If you want to just experiment really easy out the box without any major setup initially, you could probably just download a wallet called Breeze, Breez, and right in the app they have a point of sale terminal, so you can set your currency. You can literally just type in the amount that you're charging, and somebody on the spot can scan and pay you via Lightning right there. That one I find to be easy. You can even put in different items, like have them pre-programmed. So like if you're a coffee shop, you can have the different drinks listed in there, and you can just tap whatever somebody bought, and it'll auto bring up the price, and they can just scan and pay. So that's an easy, like, you can just download the app on your phone. You don't need to do much else with it, and it'll just work when somebody does happen to come in and want to buy a coffee with Bitcoin. So I would kind of start there, either with Breeze, and if you're running a node, maybe try Voltage, and you can set up. You can learn how to set up a shop with BTC Pay. You would just have to have like a tablet at the front desk there. But I do have a couple tutorials on those options. But Nate, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that once a month we do a live workshop. Voltage does, and our first one, so on our YouTube channel, you can go watch them. The first one was how to get set up, and we don't do KYC or anything, so you could just follow along. And then the second one we did was actually BTC Pay server. We go over how to make a point of sale and stuff on that. So if you'd like to check that out, it's the Volt. You can, like, on YouTube, just type in like Voltage Bitcoin workshop or something, and you should see it.
Okay, thanks BTC Session, and I do appreciate your advice. But I know Bitcoin since 20 2018 actually, but I start invest in 2022. Uh, Maybe I should try the breeze via voltage and
Yeah,
start learning again.
yeah. Breeze is great. So I mean, it's got that. I don't think there's any other app that has sort of a really cool point of sale like built in, and you can have like ID codes for the items that you're selling also, so you can keep track of inventory. It's really cool.
I'm trying to learn both. Thanks for advice tonight. It's tonight here.
Thanks for the question, Kang. Well, everyone, we appreciate you joining. There's 48 of you here, so this is your homework for the week. Tell a friend about your favorite Lightning wallet. Show them how it works. Slap follow on our page, and on Friday, whenever I ask what is the coolest thing you've done in Lightning this week, I expect 48 new responses saying I introduced a friend to a Lightning wallet. Does that sound good? If that sounds good, slap some emoji. Let me know you hear it. And everyone, have a wonderful week. We appreciate you joining, and we'll see you next week.